Hello, everybody. Let me tell you a new story today. I shared a lot of stories from others. Today, I'm going to share mine. This is my real experience, and this story was written 15 years ago on my blog in Chinese. Recently, I've become quite fascinated with the TV series called Detective Yangji. The supernatural elements in it scared my wife, but I told her not to be afraid because it's all fake. There is a saying that makes sense. It's not ghosts that scare people, but people who scare each other. I know that no matter how perplexing the phenomena in the show are, they cannot escape Detective D's keen eyes. In the end, when the mystery is revealed, all we see is the ridiculous folly of the villains. But deep down, I know that the ghosts do exist, and they are all around us. When I was a child, I encountered ghosts many times. Today, I'm writing about one that left the deepest impression on me because it was directly related to a murder case that happened locally. I grew up in the countryside, the northwest corner of Shandong province. My village is the largest one in the area, with fewer than 1,000 people. The surrounding villages were much smaller, with populations ranging from 2 to 300. Although my maternal grandma's house was in a different town, it was only 3 miles away from my home, separated by just one village called Yangji. Yes, this little village is between my village and my maternal grandma's. Yangji was a small village that held a fair on the second and seventh days of the lunar month. The village wasn't very populous, but that's where the murder took place. The village head was an old-timer who had been in a position for many years and had become a bit arrogant. One of the villagers had too many children, and the head wanted to impose a fine. Imposing a fine was a legitimate action, and the money wouldn't go to the village head's pocket. However, the head was too ruthless in his approach. One day, the villager was leading an ox down the street when he ran into the head. The head picked a quarrel with him, berating him harshly. The villager replied, "I really don't have any money at home. I'm taking the ox to sell. I'll bring the money to you in the afternoon." But the head continued to curse, probably saying something about how this would affect the village's family planning efforts. That was understandable, but what was even more infuriating was that the head's wife, hearing the commotion, came out of the house and joined in scolding. The villager kept a smile on his face but had already made up his mind. "Fuck your mama. If you're going to make me childless, I'll do the same to you." With this decision, he began to plan. Let me explain. The villager got 3 daughters, but why he used the word childless? It means having no male descendants, which is a great taboo in the countryside and a source of ridicule. It's a typical remnant of feudalism. Of course, the village head wasn't childless. He had 3 sons and a daughter, all of whom were strong and healthy. In the countryside, this was considered a family that felt superior to others. The eldest son was about to get married, and the house has already built, facing the street, but there hadn't been time to build a courtyard wall yet. The 3 brothers all slept in this new house. A few days after the scolding, the murder occurred. In the middle of the night, a neighbor suddenly noticed that the new house of the village head's eldest son was on fire. The weather was dry, and there were stacks of firewood and a row of poplar trees behind the house, all of which caught fire, creating a blaze that lit up the sky. No one dared to approach, but The village head, worried about his three sons, was pacing anxiously. A brave villager soaked a cotton quilt in a water vat and holding it over his head, rushing into the bedroom. He made it into the traditional heated brick bed and reached out to grab someone sleeping there, hoping to save them. But all he grabbed was a handful of ribs. The fire burned for several hours, turning the firewood, poplar trees, and the new house into ashes. That wasn't the worst part. The village head's two sons were also reduced to ashes. Police cars arrived with a siren blaring, and officers from the county town came in droves, followed by those from Jinan. Jinan is the capital of Shandong. One team began to investigate the social connection of the deceased and their family, while another conducted a thorough search of all male citizens aged 15 to 65 in all the villages, including Yangji and the surrounding ones. Rumors spread like a wildfire, causing widespread panic. It seemed as if the very air was filled with gossip. Eventually, the conclusion was reached. The murderer was the villager who had three daughters, and he had hired a hitman. The two of them sneaked into the victim's courtyard in the dead of the night, slit the victim's throat with a sharp knife, poured diesel fuel to set the house on fire, and fled before anyone could notice. The police issued a nationwide wanted notice, but the suspects have never been caught. They had long since fled and gone into hiding. Fortunately, on the day of the incident, the eldest son and the third son had an argument while working in the fields. In a huff, the third son went to sleep at his grandpa's house, narrowly escaped the deadly disaster. Later, the third son moved to live with relatives in another place. He dared not to come back home, then joined the army. The eldest daughter married someone far away and rarely came back. The village head also stepped down from his position, and his wife became much more docile. Thus, Yangji was left with a dark, desolate ruin of collapsed walls right next to the road, because the roof of the house was gone. Every time people passed by, they could see it, as if it were telling the tragic story that had happened here. The situation gradually calmed down, and people forgot the fear they once felt so slowly. But they could never forget the shocking crime that had taken place, because it was said to be haunted. As the ancients said, if you have no guilty conscience, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. This saying is true, but not entirely, because it doesn't apply to the elderly and children with weak physical strength, as their positive energy is too weak, or their young energy is too weak. I was just a child back then. It was drizzling as I rode my bike back home from my grandmother's house. When I reached the eastern end of Yangji, I wanted to urinate. As soon as I jumped off my bike, I fell and got sick as soon as I got home. I suddenly fell ill without any warning signs. I had a fever, slept a lot, refused to open my eyes, felt constantly drowsy, lost my appetite, and stopped watching TV and playing with my friends. All I wanted to do was sleep. And it was exactly the same as the condition of the two deceased at the time of their death. Don't forget that they were killed when they were sleeping. There was a good doctor in the village who was proficient in both traditional Chinese and Western medicine. He also had some knowledge about such supernatural encounters, but he was reluctant to make a definite conclusion. He asked my mother to buy a lot of health supplements like a ginseng root royal jelly from me. After a few more days with no improvement, he chuckled and said, you might as well burn some paper money. The child has encountered something unclean. My mother burned the paper money as he suggested, and my father took me to play in the east of Yangji for a while. The next day, I went to the market with my father and ate a lot of buns by myself. It seems like I was starved after not eating for several days. Looking back, I still remember many details. I urinated behind a big locust tree opposite the house of the deceased. When my mother took me to town to get medicine, I lay on the handlebars of the bike and only opened my eyes once on the way. That was the first and last time I ever drank ginseng root royal jelly. When my father left me on the doctor's bed, I did not even open my eyes. I was very conscious inside, but my eyes were so sleepy that I couldn't help it. In my hometown, this is called drunk. It means being possessed by a ghost. It happens to weak elderly or children. Many people don't believe it, but it does exist. The traditional Chinese character for doctor is written as E and E. The lower part of the second character is the character for shaman, and it is said that the traditional Chinese medicine is divided into 13 categories. Generally, only 12 are studied, and the one that is not studied is called shamanism. Dear readers may laugh at me for being ignorant, unscientific, and superstitious, but I have always firmly believed that there are still too many things in nature that we do not understand and should be full of awe. Not to mention anything else, this little thing that happened to me is something that our great science cannot explain. I was about 10 years old when this happened, not an age without memory, and I not only remember the details of this incident, but I'm likely to remember them for the rest of my life. And this is just one of the several ghost encounters I've had. I will share all of them very soon. Okay, everybody, this is the end of the story, and please share what you think of this story in your stories. If you enjoy my work and would like to help me continue to bring this story to you, please subscribe to my channel or like my page. Give a thumbs up to the stories you appreciate and your thoughts, opinions in the comments. I love to read them. Share the stories with anyone who might find them enjoyable. And I need a co-editor, everybody, a native English speaker, to make these stories better. Thank you, everyone. This is Alex's story time, and I am Alex. I got a lot of good stories to share with you. So, see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.